Thank you for your interest in Missouri's Special Education State Performance Plan and Annual Performance Report process. This is the complete list of SPP indicators. This presentation will cover indicators 1 and 2 on graduation and dropout percentages. Indicator 1 is the percent of youth with IEPs exiting from high school with a regular high school diploma. Indicator 2 is the percent of youth with IEPs dropping out of high school. The data source for both is the student-level data that is reported by school districts to DESE at the end of each school year. Before we dive into the data and targets for these indicators, let's look at what's happening to promote better outcomes for students with disabilities. First, participation in career and technical education, or CTE, can have great benefits. Perkins 5 is a federal act that oversees CTE. Recent changes to the act place a greater emphasis on preparing students with disabilities for desirable occupations and require the funding be spent on recruiting members of special populations, such as students with disabilities, to enroll in CTE programs. Individual career and academic plans, or ICAPs, are required for all 8th graders and are to be reviewed regularly during high school. The ICAPs, together with secondary transition goals in the IEP, can create a roadmap for success for students with disabilities. In addition to the CTE work, there are folks who work to promote best practices and reinforce compliance requirements related to secondary transition. Transition liaisons promote collaboration between the state, school districts, and local communities. Regionally based consultants provide training to school district staff on compliance requirements, social-emotional learning for all, and check and connect. And DESE hosts an annual Transition Training Institute that is open to educators and parents. Now let's dig into the data and targets. First, you need a couple of definitions. Districts use a variety of codes to report how students exit from school. There are 2 codes that are used for high school graduates, GO1 and GO3. GO1 means that the student was awarded a high school diploma by earning all required credits, and the instruction was aligned with regular grade level standards. This is how the vast majority of students earn their diplomas, and these are the students included as graduates for Indicator 1. GO3 means that the high school diploma was earned by meeting IEP goals or by having classes aligned with alternate state standards. This is generally students with the most significant cognitive disabilities or students who take alternate assessments instead of the regular MAP assessments. These students are not included in the graduate counts for Indicator 1, but they are included in the total number of exiters that is used for the denominator for Indicators 1 and 2. Again, Indicator 1 is the percent of youth with IEPs exiting from high school with a regular high school diploma. The calculation is the GO1 graduates divided by the students who left high school by graduating, dropping out, or reaching age 21 without earning a diploma, otherwise known as reaching maximum age for special education services, or max age. Please note that this calculation is required by the Federal Office of Special Education Programs, and it is not the same calculation that is used for all students, which is available on the DESE website. Indicator 2 is the percent of youth with IEPs exiting from high school by dropping out. The calculation is dropouts divided by the students who left high school by graduating, dropping out, or reaching maximum age of 21 without earning a diploma. Please note that this calculation is required by OSUP and is not the same dropout rate calculation that is used for all students, which is available on the DESE website. This graph shows the number of exiters by exit type for the last 3 school years. The total number of exiters each year is the denominator for both Indicators 1 and 2. One thing to point out is that even if there were no dropouts, the graduate percent can't reach 100% because of the students reported with the GO3 code. Also of note is the smaller number of dropouts reported in 2019-20, which results in a higher graduation percent and a lower dropout percent. The lower number of dropouts is probably related to the COVID-19 school closures at the end of that school year. Since that data is probably not representative of a normal school year, we are not going to use the 2019-20 data in setting targets for future years. As background information, these charts show the number and percent of exiters by disability category. The top chart shows that students with specific learning disabilities and other health impairments make up the largest number of exiters, and the bottom chart shows that about 90% of those students exited by earning a regular diploma. This chart shows the number of dropouts by disability category and age. We need to keep these data in mind as we set targets for the future and devise and implement improvement strategies to enable the state and districts to meet those targets. On this graph, called a scatter plot, each dot represents one school district. The placement of the dot indicates the total number of exiters in the district and their percent of exiters who graduated with a regular diploma. For example, the dot on the far right had about 230 students exit special education and a graduate percent of about 71%. The red line represents a possible target for the graduation percent. Each dot above the red line represents a district that would meet or exceed the target, and each dot below the red line would be a district that would not meet the target. The orange box on the lower left of the graph shows districts that would not meet the target but had a fairly small number of exiters, so the lower graduate percent may result from a very small number of dropouts or students reported with the GO3 code. The scatter plot gives a visual on the number of districts that would need to increase their graduate percent in order to impact overall results for the state. This chart shows actual graduate percent data for 2017-18 and 2018-19 in the blue bars. 2019-20 data are not shown due to the impact of COVID-19, as we discussed earlier. The target options are represented by the colored lines on the chart. The first option, A, is the red line that shows a steady increase through the 2025-26 school year. Option B is a yellow line that is set higher but remains flat. Option C, the blue line, has a faster increase than option A, but then flattens out. There is a link to a feedback survey at the end of this presentation. Please let us know which of these target options you prefer, or use the other option to propose different targets. This scatter plot is similar to the earlier one on graduation percents, except that we want dropout percents to be low. So the districts below the red line would meet the target, while those above the red line would not. Again, this gives a sense of how many districts would need to reduce the number of dropouts in order to impact the state data. This shows the actual dropout percent data for 2015-16 through 2018-19 in the blue bars. The first target option A is the red line that shows a steady decrease through the 2025-26 school year. Option B is a yellow line that shows lower targets. Option C, the blue line, has a faster decrease than option A. Please use the feedback survey to let us know which target option you prefer, or use the other option to propose different targets. The feedback survey also asks 3 important questions about improvement activities. Please help us identify what's working, what's not working, and what we can do to help improve results for students with disabilities so that the state and local school districts can meet the targets we are setting for the future. We need your feedback. Click on the SurveyMonkey link on this slide to go directly to the survey, or you'll find these indicator recordings and feedback surveys on the SPP APR Stakeholder Information webpage. Questions about this process should be emailed to speddata@desi.mo.gov. Thank you so much for your time and participation.